Good evening, beautiful people. I'm Mariquita Solis, vegan empowerment coach, and I'm here with my wonderful friend, Bianca de Reus. She's joining us from Australia, right? Australia,
Yes.
yeah. Australia, yeah. Believe it or not. So I'm excited to have her here to bring in her spiritual wisdom and her connection with animals and her connection with the planet and all of life. So welcome, Bianca, and everyone else, welcome to. If you're watching, please give StreamYard permission to use your name. We'll be watching the comments. If you have any questions for us, let us know. This I've been waiting for this event for a long time because, well, I'm a big animal lover and I've had some beautiful experiences, spiritual experiences with my pets that have passed, and to know that they're still here. So I'm excited to be in tune with someone that is really connected on a deeper level, like you are, Bianca. So could you tell our viewers, tell them about a little bit about yourself, about your experience as into veganism and what you do now?
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me on. It's a true honor to be here with you and with everybody who's watching or listening. It's just very exciting. We are living in an exciting time at the moment. Lots of things are happening. So yeah, I'm definitely based in Sydney, Australia, but originally from the Netherlands. And yeah, it's so beautiful to be able to have, the connections that I have with the animals and with all the beautiful energies around the earth and also with the spiritual realms. It's just it's a passion, but also a beautiful role to have in this lifetime to be able to connect at that level, because it brings a lot of joy, it brings a lot of fulfillment and guidance, not just for me, but also for the people around me. And in particular, the animals are very keen to help us to have a much better experience in our lifetime as well.
Well, that's beautiful. When did you realize that you had this deeper connection with animals?
Oh, goodness me. This goes back about 10 years now. It's quite a while. And I can actually blame a snake for this.
Really?
Yes, yes.
I love
I was
snakes.
on a beautiful bushwalk here in Sydney. And Sydney is a beautiful city, by the way. It has a lot of greenery, beautiful nature tracks everywhere. And that day I was on one of those beautiful nature tracks and with a friend of mine. And we were just we were walking around and then we had our lunch with us. So we sat down on this beautiful fallen down tree and we were just sitting down having our lunch and being in our own world, really just enjoying the surroundings. And all of a sudden in my head I was hearing the voice and it said, "Hello, can you hear me?" And it was a real clear question. It was sort of in my voice but not. And I sort of ignored it a little bit. And initially I turned to my friend and go, "Did you ask me something?" And she was like, "No, no, not at all." And I go, "Okay." Continue, enjoying the lunch and the surroundings. And again, the voice was, "Hello, can you hear me?" And I was like, this is really strange. But then it said it a few times more and it became more pressing. "Hello, hello, can you hear me?" And in my mind, I was like, "Yes, okay, okay, I can hear you, but this is not me because it sort of sounds like me, but not. But who are you?" And the voice said, "Well, I'm actually a snake. And I'm checking in with you that you can hear me because you need to go out into the world and do your job." And I was just sitting there going, "Whoa, now I'm hearing voices as well. This is just crazy." And I said, "Well, I would love to see you." And the snake says, "Well, I would love that too, but I'm not going to. I'm under the tree where you're sitting on. Your friend is afraid of snakes and I don't want to upset her. I just want to make sure that you go out into the world and do your job, connect the humans back to the animals." And I just sat there going, that is really strange. And he sort of took off. And I looked at my friend and Miriam looked at me and she goes, "Something just happened. I can see it in your face. What just happened?" Because he's also very spiritually aligned and all that. And so I asked her, I go, "Are you afraid of snakes?" Now she literally turns white, jumps up, looks around, and I just looked at her going, "I did not know that, but we are in a nature track here. If you're afraid of snakes, I've not even sensed any of that." And I said, "Don't worry about it. He's already gone." But that was a validation for me that indeed I spoke to a snake because I did not know that she was afraid of snakes. And then on the track further down, there was two other lizards that started talking to me. And then when I came home that afternoon, I had two dogs at the time, Rosie and Toby. And as dogs do, they come running to the door to greet you. And Toby all of a sudden stops. He sits down and he looks me straight in the eyes and he goes, "You can finally hear me." And I just looked at him going, yes. And he started talking and all this information came over. And I had to just really calm him down and go, "Look, I'm not quite sure what this is all about and what I'm meant to be doing with this, but just give me some time, let me get used to it." And this all sort of started to happen after I opened up myself to my spiritual awakening, which already started back in 2004. And I, taught myself in terms of finding other people. And I also did a course, became a Reiki Master. So I had already this beautiful way of utilizing universal energy and working with the spiritual abilities that I discovered for myself. So this came on top of that. And it was like, whoa, this is just really unusual. But I found a teacher who taught me some practicalities around the animal communication. And from then, you evolve, you develop and find your own ways. And now it's almost like second nature. Like I'm talking to you, I can talk to the animals. And that's just really beautiful to be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. Oh my gosh. I wish you could go on a hike with me.
Please, let's do it.
I know. Come to Atlanta and then we'll go on a hike because I lead groups at the nature center, right?
Yeah.
And so I would wonder who would be enjoying this walk and taking the walk perhaps with us, That's the thing.
Yes.
And that's amazing. Well, is there anyone else in your family that has this intuitive abilities?
Yeah, my mom actually. She's a Reiki master. She's got her some Shambhala and what they call the violet flame. So she's been doing a lot of healing as well with people, and she's very much into the spiritual practices herself. And I sort of knew that, but never really asked her about it at the time when I started discovering what I could do. And she actually helped me to kickstart my journey back in those days, because I just experienced some physical things in my body that I wasn't sure what it was. So I went to different doctors and specialists, and they said, "Oh no, you're very healthy. Nothing wrong with you really." So, and then I was sharing that with my mum at one stage, and she basically said, "Oh, do this, do that, and let's see what happens." And that's when she says, "Okay, yes, you're opening up to, your abilities, in the non-physical world." And that really started my awakening. So I did a Reiki qualification in that and started working with people and animals. So, and in relation to the animals, I've always had, affinity with animals, because I grew up with animals around me when we went on holidays, in particular to one particular area where they had horses, and always looking after the horses and wondering at all times, like, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? And not being able to really have that level of connection with them to be able to understand it. And with nature too, I've always loved being out in nature, and just it always re-energized me, but never really understood the full effect of that. And now that's so clear that, about the grounding and just being one with nature and allowing your energy to merge with all of that. It's just, it's amazing.
It is so amazing. You're right. And I just want to look at these comments. Angela's saying she's so happy she made it live. Excited to hear Bianca's story. Thank you. And then Joseph is saying, amazing. Yes, it is very amazing. And so do we think that we all have these abilities, or that only certain people? How do you think that works? Is it that you woke up to this, or what do you think about that on the spiritual level?
Yeah, great question. It's interesting that you say that you wake up to that, and the term spiritual awakening is probably going around very rapidly right now, because people are becoming more awake. And it is a terminology to say, we are waking up to the non-physical abilities that we all have. Every single person on earth has spiritual abilities. It is, however, either coming to the forefront or we keep it dormant for the rest of our lives. It depends what you choose to do in this lifetime. And for some people, it remains open from being a child into adulthood. For other people, it's from child, then it's sort of closed off when we are teenagers, and then it opens up again later down the track. It all sort of depends, what our life path is and what we had decided it becomes, and whether we are going to use our spiritual abilities. So if you choose to learn what these abilities are, you can learn that. And it's not necessarily a new skill that we're learning. We're actually remembering how to utilize our spiritual abilities. Because we are a spiritual being. We are a soul being in this human body having an experience on earth. So that means that we do have these non-physical abilities that we can utilize through this body. And because we are human as well, that could prevent us from using those abilities. Because our human may not necessarily understand what these abilities are, whether it's a comfortable zone to work with as well. And our human is learning at the same time who we are as a spiritual being. But at the same time, our spiritual being is learning how to be a human. So, and to bring those two together, to have them side by side, is something that I teach as well, for people to truly tap into, okay, what can I do with the abilities that I have available that I'm not yet aware of? But let's go and explore that and have fun doing that and really understand what these abilities are that we can utilize. Because once we do, we start to fully understand who we are as a being, and not just as a human being, but as a spiritual being having this human experience. And being able to tap into those abilities allows us to listen to our inner voice and to make decisions from that place, from that gut feeling place, because then we have a much better experience as well, and we're able to explore new things, and we are able to step out of a comfort zone, or step out of I don't know, some people might want to step out of a job that they've not been able to do yet, or step out into the world, and explore or go traveling. But our human might have kept us safe, has kept us from having these experiences. But if we utilize our inner self and listen to that voice and say, look, this is what you can experience if you go down that track. So let's take that step and bring your human on board with that. Then we can learn to really adapt into it and be able to live from that place. But there is a little bit of another side of the coin too. And it was really interesting. I was talking to a colleague yesterday, Paulina, she lives in Finland, and we both had a similar experience that when we go into our spiritual practices, so for example, meditation, right? And we go really deep into that meditation, and we feel that we are being lifted up and our energy is being, really, it's almost like you're beaming, right? Because your vibration is lifted. So sometimes when we get to that place, it's really hard to come back to earth. Because it feels so beautiful, and we get so much wisdom, and we get all these beautiful little golden nuggets coming through, that you don't want to leave that place. But we have to come back to earth. And therefore, when we are doing spiritual practices, the grounding aspect of that, bringing us back to earth. And I know that you love being out in nature, Marakita. So doing that, being in nature, hug a tree, have your bare feet on the ground, and just really allow yourself to get back to earth is extremely important for us, because we still have a human life to live as well. So we need to stay here in the earth realms to be able to do that as well. But we can tap into those beautiful spiritual energies. Yeah.
Yeah, and Joseph is saying, I would love to experience that.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and it's beautiful,
Awesome.
like when you're talking about the meditation, right? And then feeling that, that lifting up, because sometimes, I'll feel my body just vibrating. And then being with the energy healers at my church, sometimes like my hand will just start moving up. That was like one of the first experiences that I ever had. I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And it was such a profound, just a profound experience. And Joseph is asking, is that the same with astral projection?
Mm.
What is that?
Astral
Astral.
projection. So what you were explaining about your hand moving, that's not something that you do deliberately, right? That sort of
Right.
happens
No, no,
in
no.
the, yeah. So that might even be, your soul being allowing to utilize your human body to help amplify the healing. Because what happens in that space is when we open up to the universal energies, those energies are coming through you. So you are the conduit of the healing that you are allowing to come through, right? Because it's not your energy that you give in terms of the healing, because we don't want to go down that road because you don't want to be depleted. So
Mhm.
you open up and you allow the universal energy to come through, and all sorts of things can happen when that happens, right? So if your hand needs to be lifted up to amplify the healing, then that will happen, and you are beautifully aligned. You fully trust that you are okay in that moment as well. And that's when, all those sorts of things can happen. Now, astral projection is when we are in such a deep meditation that we can actually leave our physical body to go into the different realms. That can be really fun, because we can really explore things while we're sleeping, for example. So you can set the intention that when you fall asleep, to have an astral projection. So that means that you leave your physical body and your soul has an adventure. However, we need to practice this really well, because it could potentially mean that you can't come back into your body. So we still need to have an attachment to our physical body so that we can come back. And through a meditation activity, we can do that to have perhaps a golden cord attached so that we are able to come back into our body. And everybody can do this. And sometimes people are not even aware that we're doing it. They think they're dreaming, right? But sometimes when you wake up and you wake up with this shock, that could very well be that you may have been traveling outside of your body and you come back into your body, and that wakes you up because it's like, oh, yeah, I'm back, right? So astral projection is indeed when we are actually leaving our physical body to allow our spirit, our soul, to have experiences or do work, learn things in the different realms as well. And that can be really exciting. Yeah. But I
Wow.
would strongly suggest, if you've never done that before, to actually find someone that can teach you and guide you through that process. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never even heard of that. So, I mean, that's the amazing thing I mean, learning all this. There's so much to learn and so much, I mean, so many deeper levels of knowing yourself. And it's
Yeah.
really so, once you really tune into yourself and start loving yourself, is when all this expansiveness, you start growing and really feeling and getting back into connection with the earth. And if you're really struggling, like you were saying, grounding
Mm,
yourself with the earth is one of the best places to start. And
yes.
yeah, and I
Yes.
love that Angela's saying that's why she's grateful to live only 2 blocks from the beach.
Beautiful. I love the beach. Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful. Wonderful. The ocean and the beach, they have such an amazing energy, and it really feels like it amplifies you being able to re-energize and ground and just really come back to yourself. And not only that, the ocean animals, they are so amazing. They really tune into us as humans, having that beautiful beach walk or feet in the water, and that even helps further with our re-energizing as well. And Joseph was actually asking, what's the difference between spirit and soul? That's a question I get very often.
Okay, well, I'm going to sit back and let you answer it.
I'm sure you can add a lot to that as well, Marakita. But spirit and soul, yeah. So they're sort of the same. I mean, we can be in spirit, which means that we are connected to the spiritual realms through our own spiritual self. Right? Our soul is the eternal being that we are. That is the light being that we are. And maybe people have seen pictures of, how people represent a soul, where you can see this beautiful white sort of image looking like a human, but not. And you don't see the face necessarily. It's just a beautiful white being. Our soul is that non-physical part of us that lives on when our body is ready to leave the physical earth. So our soul has many lifetimes. Our soul can come back to earth whether that's a human or an animal. That means reincarnation. Our soul may have had, other lives as well. And it could be one life, it could be hundreds of lives before. Being in spirit means that we are really connecting to our inner self. And spirit also is referred to as the souls that have passed over. Usually, when we talk about spirits, we talk about people that have passed over and we can connect with them in the spiritual world. But in effect, it's actually one and the same, because we are all connected at that source level, at that spiritual level. We are family, even though we may not know each other in this physical world, but we know each other at the soul level. And when we are connecting in, it feels very familiar. It feels like you're going home. And that's our soul. That's literally our soul, who is so much, in that space. And the spirit is, and spirit is also often referred to as, we are in spirit, we're in high spirits. We're feeling great. We're having a lot of fun. That's also spirit, right? But it has to do with your inner self. When we experience joy and we're having fun and we're really beautifully, passionately living our life, we are living our life from our spiritual self, from our soul. When we actually experience the things that are not so nice, we might be sad or experiencing grief, or we may not have fun at all. We might have an experience that we really don't want, or we're trying to get out of it as much as we can. Then that's often also linked to our human experience. And our soul is then working really hard to get us out of that space, right? And lift us up. And that's the spiritual connection that we have. And spiritual is also, in my mind, the overall word of working with the beautiful non-physical realms. And that's the spiritual, and that's why they say spiritual awakening, because we are tapping into that and we're relearning how to connect with our spiritual family as well. Yeah. What about you, Marikita? What's your take on the two differences?
Well, I think the soul is like who you are after your body is gone, just that essence of you, and the spirit is, I think, I think of it more as maybe the way that you're kind of your energy that's coming out of your soul. But yeah, and I was just thinking about how a lot of people still believe that animals don't have souls, and
Mhm.
what would you say to that? Because I was just watching a YouTube about someone is just, I guess this is just very in certain religions, right? And I'm not knocking any religions, but that's just what's taught, right?
Mhm.
That we are above the animals, because that, and that's very impossible for me to believe, knowing that, seeing my little dogs and the animals that I love, and even holding the snakes, of course, right? And then that beautiful, graceful energy of holding the snake and that connection, and that trust. This is a trusting animal. It's not an inanimate object, right? And so
Mhm.
there's something beyond that body. So what would you say to that, to people that say that animals don't have souls?
It makes me sad. It really makes me sad. Animals are sentient beings. They are soul beings. They are the same as us. They may even have been human before. So to say that an animal doesn't have a soul is yeah, it really saddens me for the animals more so. And I teach people that animals do have a soul. And when we connect to the animals, it's through a process of telepathy and soul connection. That's what we do. What we're doing here is a soul connection. There is no coincidence that we are here together today, that we've actually met earlier on, Marikita, and that we have a connection, right? The people that are watching, there is no coincidence that you are here watching and listening to this conversation. Our souls have created that for you, and you have created that for yourself as well. When we connect with the animals, they also create those connections for us. And just like us here on earth, we have a specific role that we are fulfilling. There are things that we want to learn in this human life, people that we want to meet, people that we need around us. And animals have a similar role like that. So when you have animals around you, part of your family, or you work with them, you might be able to pick up on the fact that, first of all, they have different personalities. They all respond differently. They all interact differently. And second of all, they have a role to play. And you can see that even by just observing the animals as well. But yes, they absolutely have a soul. And when I connect to the animals, it's a pure heart-to-heart soul connection to them first. And I send them unconditional love, establish the connection, because then I receive the permission and say, yep, let's have that conversation. And then all the other abilities start to take effect. So the more I've worked with the animals, when people say they don't have a soul, they're not sentient beings, we can just use and abuse them, it makes me really sad for the animals, but also sad for those people, because that means they haven't got the understanding yet of who we are as a soul being and a human being, let alone the understanding who the animals are as a soul being. And they have a role to play, absolutely.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
what you're saying, because it just goes back to how it starts with ourself. Like once we can see ourself more clearly and tune into our soul, then we can see so much more. And that's what you're saying, because they're not seeing themselves as the soul, the soul spirited being. So they're not able to see, really connect with the others out there that have this
Mhm.
beautiful soul. So yeah, I
Mhm.
love that. It makes so much sense. I mean, really tuning in, doing inner work here first is what's going to open up to the rest. Like you said, it wasn't until you started doing the energy work that you were able to open.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
let's
exactly.
see, what did Joseph say? Joseph said, "What's your take about heaven?"
What's my take about heaven? Oh, that's interesting. I think I'm still exploring that in a way. Um, what's my take on heaven? I feel there is no difference between heaven or hell or all of that. I feel that there are different levels in the spiritual realms. And levels, I don't mean, there is a hierarchy per se. I mean, there are different, it's almost like different chambers and different rooms where certain groups of spiritual beings are hanging out, right? Because even when we pass over and we go back to our spiritual form, we learn, we evolve, and we have different roles to play, and that's why we have the masters, we have the archangels, and there are spirits, and we have our spiritual guides that have had a human experience, spiritual guides that have not had a human experience. And so, but for us to understand it as a human, we will refer to it as different realms, as in different layers within that space. I believe that when we pass over, we go to one of those different realms, depending on how we have evolved as a soul being, throughout lifetimes, including this one. And so I don't necessarily believe there is heaven per se. But I do understand that as a human, we need that concept to be comforted by the fact that when we pass over, we go to a beautiful place and we call that heaven. And that's just the spiritual world, in my opinion on that. But I guess that's also because through my deep meditations, I have been very privileged, I feel, to have seen what it looks like and what it feels like to be there. So, and that's why I also feel like, there isn't necessarily, heaven. However, it is very colorful and it feels very loving. It's an intense love that you feel, and there's no expectations, there's no judgment, you can just be. And to be able to move into that energy and to be surrounded by your loved ones in the spiritual world is just an amazing sensation. And yeah, but again, I feel that humans do need to have that distinction. When we pass, we go to heaven. If you've done bad things, you go to hell. I don't believe that. I believe we all go to the spiritual world, and depending on what we have experienced and how we have evolved, that depends on, what are the different realms we may move back into. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, that's a great answer. I feel
Yeah.
like the same thing. I mean, I never really, I mean, about the layers, but that makes sense. I feel like that, I mean, we are here, right? I mean, it's like we are here and yet we're not here, depending on how awake we are, like how much we're in tune with our spirituality, like you're saying, that you've already experienced it, right? And I love what you're saying about the animals too, that connection with, I mean, on this higher plane comes with creating a safe environment of love. That's the foundation of this, to connect with
Mm.
an animal. You're creating this beautiful safe space, and then it's welcome and invited, so the animal comes in. So I think
Yes.
that's beautiful. So can
Yeah.
you tell us
And that's
what
also a
yeah,
sign
go
of
ahead.
respect, right? It's a sign of respect for them and their energy. And I have had animals say to me, no, not now, not the time. Okay, so I had to reschedule a client appointment because the animal's not ready to connect. And you respect that, because if they're not ready to provide information that we might be looking for, then so be it. And the other thing that's also happening is that animals will only share that what they believe is needed in that moment for us to hear. So if we are looking for specific answers, we may not get it, because it's not necessarily what is important to them, and it's not necessarily what we need to hear as well. So yeah, it's fascinating.
Well, it is very fascinating. And what about that? Can you tell us some specific examples of animals that you've connected with that have passed?
Yeah, wow. That is a very different experience for me, to connect with animals that have passed over.
Mhm.
They feel different. The information comes through in a different way. And it is just, it's also a process where I need to be careful, I feel, because when we connect with even a person that has passed over, I believe it's not our job to call them back, because we need affirmation that they're okay. When spirit is ready to connect with us, they will show up loud and clear. So when someone books in a session and say, I want to connect with the animal that has passed over, I do a shout out. It's almost like I've got my megaphone out and go, Spirit world, we would love to connect with this animal or with this person. When they're ready, let me know and we can book it in. Because, their human is really keen to find out how they're doing, what they're doing, and if they have any messages. And then for me, it's once the client says, look, I would love to connect with my pet, then every day I'll just quickly tune in to find out whether they're ready and whether they're here. And when they are, that's when we have that session, and I can ask the questions and whatever the animal wants to share at the moment. But people, it's interesting, people already know that their animal is around them, and they know that they're well, they know that they're happy, pain free, and sometimes they don't come through straight away because they need to readjust being a spirit again, readjust being in a non-physical form. And sometimes they don't come back at all because they have different jobs to do out there, but they can check in with us as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then I've noticed things, strange things. I mean, like I'll hear or I'll feel a little dog on, like a dog on my bed, and then I'll like I know I was watching my friend's dog, and then my new little dog, and I looked at both of them, and they were asleep, and then I knew that Mickey was there. He had come back. I just lost him a couple of months ago, and I know. And then one time I felt like I was dreaming. Well, maybe who knows if it was a dream anymore, about Garci, one of my dogs, and there was a lot of guilt, which is very normal. And then being with him in the dream, and then I felt a little paw on my hand, and then I looked around, and then that was when Mick was still alive, and I looked over and Mick was over there, and I was like, well, whose paw is this, on me? So
Yeah, yeah,
it was
yeah,
amazing.
beautiful. And they can do that. They can make you, they can give you that physical feeling of I'm here, that comforting, and you feel that impression. So they can do that, absolutely. Yeah, and that's a question as well that a lot of people ask me is, how will they let me know that they're with me? So then there are specifics that they give me, like, you might feel me brushing against your leg, or I might hop on your lap, or, I'll brush you over your forehead, or things like that. And then people go, oh yeah, I've sensed that, and I go, yeah, great. And they're definitely around you. They pop in and check up on you. My two dogs as well, that they passed away about 3 years ago now. And especially Rosie, she's here quite often. And I see her laying down on the floor, or she pops in, her head around the corner, and then she goes, oh, you won't see me for a little while. I've got stuff to do. And I go, okay, yep, see you later. And I've very recently adopted a new dog, Tofu. And both Rosie and Toby have been here with her, to show her around, to talk to her. And it's just lovely to have them still part of the pack, even though they're not physically here. But yeah, they do have other things to do. So yeah.
That's amazing. And that's
It's
the way
good.
I feel like.
It's reassuring.
Yeah, it is,
Even though
isn't
the
it?
grief is enormous, and I definitely underestimated what it feels like to lose a pet. The grief is undescribable, and that can still pop up, but it's transformed into gratitude and love, because they still check in and they're still here. So that's amazing. Because again, it's a soul connection. So whether they're here in a physical realm or not, we still have that connection with them, and we can still have those conversations with them. The same as for people.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. And well, I feel that definitely. And then yes, it's a very profound grief, but then I take myself to another level. I'll just to sit quietly and send that love to Mick, and say,
Yeah.
I know you're here with me, and I'll start talking to him. So then to move out of that, so
Yeah.
yeah. So Trisha's here. Joining.
Oh, hello, Trisha.
And then what is Joseph saying? Paranormal activities.
Right. Okay. So I was just reading Trisha's as well. And Joe's saying, we've seen videos and documents of paranormal activities. How true is this? Let me go there first, and then I'll answer Trisha's question as well, because that's quite important to understand what Trisha's talking about and what the animals are saying. Paranormal activities, yeah, I've not necessarily experienced it in that way. I have had spirit come through that wasn't wanted. I have had entities attached to me, which were horrible experiences, and I would definitely not, put that towards anyone else, because that's just really a horrible experience. So I can only talk from that experience, right? That when we open up to the spiritual world, we must be so loving towards ourselves, and we must state we only open up to those spirits that have the best of intentions, the highest of intentions for us as a soul being and as a human being, and everybody involved around us. So that's always an intention that is stated up front. Now, in the earlier days when I learned about all of these things, I didn't do it as well, and I wasn't necessarily protecting myself as well. So I went to a really big spiritual event. We have like the Mind, Body, and Spirit Festival here in Sydney every year. And I went there, and I came home, and I had an entity attached to me. So it took me a long time to remove that entity. I literally locked myself up in the bathroom, bathtub filled with Epsom salts and sage, and I had the candles going, and I had to bring in all the spiritual teams to help me release this entity. So paranormal activity I've not experienced myself, although when I go into certain areas, I feel spirits that are not needing to be there. I feel the difference between a spirit that has a good intention, that is here to provide a message or to provide guidance, or spirits that might be just passing through, or spirits that are there that have, not so good intentions for us. And you work with those to send them to the light, because often they are just lost souls. They're just, in between Earth and where they need to be, and they might not even know that they've passed over. And so, yeah, we do need to make sure that we send them to the light, and really actively send them to the light, and not allow them back in. But I haven't seen things, I'm now seeing scenes in front of me, like, open, cupboard doors and things like that, lights switching on and off and all that sort of stuff. I've not experienced that to that extent, but I have experienced sometimes, a door just opening up and there's absolutely no wind anywhere, like there's no breeze, no nothing. Or we've had, a light on and off, on occasion. But I'm very blessed to be able to then just tune in and find out, okay, is this bad or is this okay? But I also have a strict rule with the spiritual world. I have my boundaries in place, where I have a strict rule of, you are just not allowed in. I'm not allowing you in my space whatsoever. So that sort of paranormal activity. And I love watching those shows, by the way, Joseph, because it intrigues me, right? Where you see these teams of people going into haunted houses, and they have all this equipment to measure whether there is activity and things like that. I'm fascinated by that. And so I know it's out there and I know it exists. But I'm not exposing myself to it, nor do I allow it around me either. And that's literally I've experienced the entity, and I'm never going to do that again. So yeah, and that's what I would love to say as well to people who are moving into connecting with the spirit world. Make sure that you have that clear intention and that clear agreement with the spiritual world, that you only work with those entities and with those beings that have the best and the highest of intentions for you and those around you. And make sure that you do some protection rituals. For example, you can ask white light to be surrounded all the way around you to be able to protect you, or visualize a beautiful golden egg in front of you, and inside that egg are all the things that you love in the world, your favorite music, colors, and the feelings that you want to experience. And you see yourself stepping into that egg, and that surrounds you for the rest of the day. And you can move freely with this egg around you. It's like a bubble that you then put around you. And that will not allow anything in, because when something does want to come in, or an energy from someone, maybe someone is depleting you with their energy. They're so low in energy and they're draining it from you. In that bubble, that won't happen, because they can't get through, right? It's like a shield that you then have around you. So make sure that you do have those practices in place, because that will absolutely help prevent those things from happening that you don't want to happen. Yeah.
That's
So great
beautiful.
question. Yeah, awesome. We could potentially have spirits attached to us from even previous lives, right? And there are people that can facilitate to help you to communicate to those spirits. And this, for example, things that are not working in your life, feelings that you may have that pull you downwards, and you'd think, hang on a minute, I'm actually quite happy. Why am I feeling like this? Maybe you feel down and out and depressed or sad, or you're grieving, and you don't know where that's coming from. That could potentially be a lost soul, that's attached to you, and that basically wreaves a bit of havoc for you in your life. And you may feel blockages and things like that. Now, it's not to say that it's always the case that it's a lost soul that's attached to you. It could also mean that your ego, your human, is causing those feelings and the blockages. But that's to be decided, because you'd want to dive into that to find out, where is that coming from? And if it is a lost soul that's attached to you, we can actually have a conversation with them. And I've actually recently experienced that myself. I went to a beautiful group of people that actually help people to release these lost souls. And we had a lady that was the conduit, and then a lady who embodied that spirit so that we could have a conversation with them. And the spirit that was attached to me was from quite a few lifetimes ago, who didn't realize he'd passed. And then I asked, well, why are you here? So I answered the question, why that person was still here, and what it believed its role was, and didn't understand it had passed over. So then I had a full understanding of why I had experienced those feelings and these things that were happening to me. And once that was done, I said, okay, well, I actually would love for you to go, because your job is done. and that's when we could really release that soul, and they finally understood what was going on for them as well. And it's literally like setting out the benefits of fully passing over, for them to then go and say, look, you're not needed here anymore. You can rest, you can relax, just be, and you can do that when you fully go into the light, and that's what you can experience then. So yeah, that's a really beautiful process.
I love that because I think about, well, when people pass it, I want them to feel peace, right? You don't have to stay here worried about me, to give them the beautiful, like I was telling Mickey when he was 18, right? I know that you're going to go and I want you to go in peace. Don't worry about me because of that same thing. I don't want him to be here feeling like that he can't enjoy the next step of his life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it can be tough on them too. Can you imagine being in between? I can't even imagine.
No, I know. I love all this conversation. I know that some people might think, well, what are they talking about? But
Yes.
I think, when you're really tuning in, there's so much that we don't even know, and just even
Yeah.
thinking about if you plant a seed, someone might walk up and they might, say there's a flower that's coming up and they're looking at the ground and there's no flower there. And that's just very basic, that we can't see really what's happening. And that's an easy way to see how limited we are in our vision. And once we really tune into our soul and into this deep listening, that's when we transform our lives. That's when we, have unlimited potential, in transformation. You don't know, like right now I can only see this much, this next step in front of me. But when I get to the next step, there's another step down the road. Who would have even thought I would have been vegan, and in college, I just thought it was nuts. So I couldn't see that far ahead of me, or even that I would be a coach. No way. When I was crying my eyes out every night on my bed, just feeling lost and hopeless, who in the world would think that I was inspiring other people and taking them down the path? That was so far away from my vision, right? And so, what's great is that you're a coach and that you can see ahead from what other people can't see when they get through these blocks. So, yeah. So I know that we're wrapping up here. So I wanted to make sure that you get to say everything you wanted to say and also tell everybody where they can find you and about your services here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I just want to go back to what you were saying about, having those experiences and thinking, oh my God, I'm inspiring all these people and I'm going through all of this, right? But I believe that we have to go through all those layers for ourselves to be able to teach other people what to do and to help them and to see that vision, to see it happening for them so that we can guide them through the steps. Because if we can't see that for them, we can't necessarily be a really good coach or a guide or a teacher or a mentor. So I believe that every time when we go through another level that we work through, I call it leveling up all the time, because we are expanding ourselves, we are growing ourselves, and having certain experiences will help us to help others. And that's really interesting too, where you always see people showing up for you where you go, oh my goodness, I've been there. Or wow, I'm actually going through that right now. So this is learning for me too, right? So, and that's the wonderful process of being able to help others, because you continuously learn yourself. And it's just beautiful to see that other people are actually growing at the same time, right? So, and that's a wonderful process. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. And what
Yeah.
you're doing, and that you're so in tune, that you're leading people to be so in tune with themselves also, so that they're able to connect with their pets on a different level, and that you're bringing hope to people is amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So, and the animals, they really help us with that amazingly too, because they see what's happening for us. And in particular, when we have pets, they're with us 24/7. So I often have to tell people, this is what your cat just told me about you. Are you willing to hear this?
Oh, wow. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we
So,
got to definitely tell
yes.
where people can find you.
Yeah. So to answer your question, I'm indeed on Facebook and LinkedIn. I have Instagram as well, which I'm still learning about. So bear with me on the Instagram platform, but it is evolving. And I've got a website as well, which is biancadereus.com. So you can find all my services there. And I've actually got an animal communication workshop coming up, beginning of June, that's starting. Might not be as favorable though for the times in the US because it's during daytime here in Australia and it's all online. And that's literally the animal communication workshop teaches you to tune into yourself to then be able to connect to your pets and be able to hear, see, and feel what they are experiencing. And that's a beautiful process to go through. So thank you.
Yeah, well, I think what I've learned is really the more work I do on myself, the more chance I'm going to be able to, explore more and see more and be, just be more
Yeah.
in touch with that spirit world. And I see it happening, so it's beautiful. And Angela's asking if the animal communication workshop has replays, or what other things do you have available?
Yes. So when you join and sign up for the workshop, then once the workshop is finished, you will have access to an online platform where you will find all the resources and all the recordings of the group workshop that you were part of, so that you have access to that lifetime, so that you can always go back and refresh yourself and revisit. Yeah.
And do you have books that are available, or
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just in case, like for people that, yes, bring it out. Show us what we can get. Hello, can you hear me? The snake.
Exactly. So this is a book I published back in 2018, and it's got some images, it's got illustrations. Oh, this way, and it's a book to read about animal communication. It's got part of my story in there as well. However, I'm not just a person that says, just read this. I also get you to do it. So the book has activities, so you can implement some of the activities that I invite you to participate in. And so it's actually a little workbook.
Wonderful. So they can find you on Facebook, LinkedIn, a little bit on Instagram. And do you have YouTube, did you say?
Yes, I've got a YouTube channel as well. You know what? I'll actually put in the comments
Yes.
all the links. So might be easier.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Put all that. Yeah. Afterwards, go back and put in the comments. And I'm so thankful for this wonderful conversation. And you were one of the first vegan friends that I have met. And that I love it. That was like, what a blessing that the universe sent you to me. Someone that was so connected with my heart, and animals on a deeper level, And so I'm very thankful that we met and that we're going to have to do this again.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I just wanted to share as well with everyone that I have also had Mariquita as my guest on my podcast, which is coming out very soon. So keep your ears and eyes peeled so that you can see that episode popping up as well.
That was beautiful too. Yeah. I mean, our conversations are always, and then are just so light filled, and to have these beautiful folks with us, Angela, Trisha, and Joseph, and everyone else that's watching. It's just a tremendous blessing. Let us know in the comments if you're watching the replay. If you have any questions, we'll be going back and answering them. And definitely reach out to Bianca. She is such a loving soul. You can see that. We can feel that energy of your spirit and that warmth from your heart. So thank you all. So and look at Trisha saying, I hope to continue working on myself because I carry a heavy burden daily for the animals and I just don't know how to let it go.
Oh, Trisha, I feel that. Yeah. Look, reach out. Let's have a chat about that. Let's just have a conversation, and might be able to help you to release that for you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Definitely everybody get a hold of Bianca, because she is such a beautiful spirit and she's here to serve. So I'm very thankful for you, Bianca, and for all these beautiful listeners. So
thank you so much. Thank you. It was a real honor and so much fun. Yeah, great conversation. And thank you everyone for watching and for your comments. And reach out if you have any more questions. I'm here.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.